Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
So yesterday, me and a few friends went to a local park at around 10:30 p.m. or so to just chill and talk. The topic of scary experiences came up. One of my friends, a girl around the age of 20, had a good number of terrifying tales. Here are a few, told from her point of view. So there is this house a couple blocks down from me that always gave me the creeps. Until recently, I didn't know anything about the history of this house, nor did I care to say the least. One day, though, I'm sitting with my mother, and she just comes out and says something along the lines of, "It's going to be so sad when my friend who had recently moved into the house finds out about what happened there." This piqued my interest. Apparently, a few years back, a couple lived in the house. This couple had 2 children. The family was, to say the least, falling apart faster than the Space Shuttle Discovery. The dad had major social and mental problems. The mother just wanted the best for her children. One day, after a rather intense fight, the mother took the kids to school and went to work. When she dropped them off, she told the teachers that if their father came to pick them up, to call the police. Sure enough, a couple hours later, he came to pick up the children. When the teacher declined, he took them by force. The teachers called the police. When the mother found out, she flipped her shit. The kids were nowhere to be found. They checked all over town. They finally found the father at a local bar. When they brought him into the police station, he kept telling them to check at Grandma's house. It wasn't until a few weeks later, when the neighbors complained of the smell, that they found the children. The father, at the time of the children's disappearance, had been renovating the family garage. It turns out he had killed both of them, chopped them up into little pieces, and mixed them with the cement flooring in the garage. I've been down there, because it's my friend's house. And yes, on a point earlier, she knows about the murders, and there is such a feeling of dread. I refuse, to this day, to ever go down there alone. The room has this atmosphere. When the lights are off, chills go down my spine and I lock up, unable to move. I have not been down there since the first time I ever did.
The only scary thing that has happened to me was this meth head running from the cops ran through my yard. I saw him in my front yard through my bedroom window, and being like 7 at the time, I fucking pulled those goddamn blankets up to my face. He came up and cupped his hands around his eyes and looked around inside my window and walked around my house. I darted from my parents' room, and when I told my dad, he grabbed a gun and got my dog up. They walked out on the back porch, and my dog took off barking and snarling. The guy yelled, "Holy shit!" My dad started screaming, "I'm gonna kill you, fucker." He jumped a fence and ran through the woods next to my house. Scary shit at the time. Looking back, the fucker was only like 5 feet tall and skinnier than a twig. My dog would have probably ripped him in half had he caught him.
So, I live near Kings Park, New York. If you are not familiar with this town, it is the site of the Kings Park Psychiatric Center. Thousands of mental patients were killed and died here. Wiki it. It's pretty interesting. But I digress. I was trying out the ghillie suit I had just completed. I had a 40-pound pack equipped with plenty of food and some water. I also had a hatchet and my boot knife. I went adjacent to the psych center, where there is a water tower and a field. This field is massive. About 2 square miles of nothing but tall grass up to your hip. People walk by here, mainly teens trying to climb and vandalize the tower. But still, it was a good test for me. I set up my suit, stuffing grass into holes in the suit and letting the burlap do its work, So I waited and waited, move in position, crawling slowly just in case somebody decided to come by, and I was able to scare the shit out of a bunch of freshmen, spray paint in hands. A bear-shaped object appearing from nowhere, 2 feet in front of you, is rather scary. And they sprinted off. My first victims. It took 6 hours of waiting to test against 2 people. I went further out into the field, about 500 meters, and I stopped. Now, please keep in mind that I started my stalk at 2 p.m. It was now 8 p.m. I decided to stay the weekend, move in the woods, all but invisible. Now it's about 1 in the morning when I decide to light a fire in the woods. I take out my flint, a few cotton balls, and strike up a fire quickly. I took refuge with my back against a downed tree and used the tree for fuel as well. Cracked open some canned food and my water bottle. I had a good time by myself and eventually went to sleep there, knife in hand and combat hatchet hidden close to me. I woke up. My fire was dead, and I looked at the sky. The stars were bubbling, almost as if they were in a rapid boil on a stovetop pot. And I heard movement. Somebody was moving just out of my line of sight. And I heard somebody giggle, like a moron, like goofy but crazed. It happened in a second, but I was alert. I turned slowly from the ground to the sky again, and I thought I heard scuttling in the trees. I dug myself in and hit what I thought was a rock, but longer. I felt around in the dirt, and it turned out to be a femur. I placed it back and sat there for the rest of the night. Morning came slowly. When morning did come, I looked past the field of sight I had, and there was a disturbance among the leaves there. And the hole that I dug myself in, there was no bone, just the outline of my body compacting the dirt. I shook off what had happened and got back to the stalk. I was able to get by 3 adults and 2 kids walking, an elderly couple, a ranger, and a ton of teenagers. Nightfall came again. I abandoned the camp I set the other night and decided to sleep in the field where thousands were buried. It was approximately 11 o'clock. I went to shift my leg, but I could not move it for the life of me. I looked down and saw that some of the wood pile had fallen on my leg without me noticing. I got up off the mound of dirt I was sitting on and looked above the grass. There was a man, about 800 meters away, looking at me. Just a shadowy outline. I slowly moved down and killed my fire, taking out the 4 main burning logs and snuffing the ashes with dirt. I slowly moved back up. He was standing about 300 meters away. I have no idea how fast he could have done that. It takes me 2:10 to run a half-mile in optimal conditions, and he was not alone. There was a line of people, and I heard talking. It was getting louder. More and more people were making a line. It got louder and louder, but it was odd. Nobody had a flashlight. Odder still that there was a line of 50 or so people. I threw on my headpiece and started to crawl away, carefully parting the grass. Inevitably, they got to me. I took a peek up, and there were 3 old men that I could see and 5 old ladies, all dressed up in circa 1950s clothing. They had no eyes. Some had tumors on their face. Some were burned. I pissed myself. I flat out pissed my pants. I got up when it sounded like they were gone, or at least farther away. When I looked up, mist started pouring from the ground. I slowly crawled to the main road. Took me 45 minutes. I got there and walked up the road. Unlocked my bike and went home at 2 in the morning. When I got home, there was a pair of shoes and a hat on my doorstep. I went to pick it up when the wind gusted. The hat blew off. The shoes were gone. I spent the night in my bathtub.
I live in a suburb of Washington, D.C. It's about 10 minutes away, but has a lot of historical shit. In my neighborhood, everything is real old. All the houses were made in like 1901. The oldest part of my neighborhood is the slave cemetery the government deemed as a historical site. It does not look like much. It is just a piece of land with a fence around it. The tradition in my neighborhood is if you can spend a whole night there without leaving, you are a god. Well, about 10 years ago, I was 11 at the time. My friend's older brother Mark went to go stay at the burial ground for the night. First, he tried to get my brother to go, but he had to go to work the next morning. And at the time, I was too big of a wuss to go. I begged him not to go because I had a bad feeling in my stomach that something bad was going to happen. He went anyway, and I remember that night I could not sleep. I wanted to go check on him but was too afraid to go near that place. I could not sleep at all. All night I was tossing and turning, knowing something bad had happened to Mark. I finally got to sleep, but no more than 20 minutes later, I woke up screaming. I knew something bad had happened to Mark. I woke up my parents in tears, saying, "Something has got Mark. Something has got Mark." My parents calmed me down and told me it was just a bad dream. I believed them. I went upstairs and finally got back to sleep. Later that morning, Mark's mom came knocking at our door to see if Mark had come here. She knew that Mark went to spend some time at the cemetery, but he was supposed to come home 3 hours ago. Me, my brother, and my family went to go check the burial ground out. Mark was not there. Nothing was there. There was no sign anyone had even been there, except for one of the headstones was broken. That was new. The same plot of land had soil that was fresh, like someone had just dug it up. We thought nothing of it at the time. We called the cops. They searched for him for months. Nothing. They eventually gave up. It was only until 8 years later, when the city decided the burial ground was not historic anymore, some zoning bullshit, they dug it up. There were two odd things about the burial ground when they dug it up. First, there were no bodies at all. No skeletons, no remains, not even animal remains. The second is the same plot of land that was fresh all those years before had Mark's clothing in it. Just fragments of Mark's clothing. Still to this day, I have no idea what happened to Mark. If you think this is bullshit, check Springfield, Virginia records. It's all there.
We moved to the country several miles outside of a small town near the town we moved from. It was on a back road from the highway, but there was a long row of old, distantly spaced houses. One of the houses was run down, presumably abandoned. The windows were blocked with particle board, and the gravel driveway had long since overgrown with grass until it was just another part of the yard. The story I was told was that a man lived there alone. He was a mechanic, and as a hobby had been building an Autogyro. He accidentally decapitated himself, but because he didn't live with anybody, it was a long time before he was found. His elderly parents eventually came to find out what happened to him, and found him dead and decomposing. He was taken, buried, and the parents simply closed up the house, touching nothing. Some friends and I actually decided to go inside one night, so we pried out some nails and went in through a window. It was true. Everything was like it was just left, except covered in dust, and in some places water damage where the roof had started to leak. There were dishes in the sink and on the table, clothes lying on the floor. There were still cans in the cupboard and desiccated food in the refrigerator. We walked through the whole house except the basement, and the whole place was like that. I don't know if the guy really died that way, but the house was fully intact, yet abandoned and sealed off.
Back in college, I rented this apartment because I wasn't one for living with strangers, so dorm life seemed a little rough for me. The first few weeks were fine. Nothing extremely strange would happen, but a couple nights a week I'd be studying and suddenly hear this loud bang coming from my bedroom, and then it started to happen while I was sleeping too. I'd be awakened by the sound of the bang. Its origin was more obvious now. It was coming from my closet. I asked my landlord about this and he just looked at me all simple like and said it's not the building. And I said, well, if it's not the building, what is it? And he just said again, it's not the building. Don't worry about it. I found this highly strange but didn't know who to make a complaint to, so I just lived with it. After about a month of living there though, things got a little creepy. I'd wake up with my closet door open. I always leave it shut, irrational bogeyman fear. Sometimes when those banging noises would wake me up, I'd see the door slowly creep open. At this point, I figured it was my neighbor and put a complaint in to the landlord about him, and he said he'd do something about it. One night I was doing some homework when I went to the kitchen to get something to drink. As I passed my bedroom, I saw out of the corner of my eye some dark figure slipping into my now open closet. And shortly after that, the bang noise. I did a double take and WTF. Right about this time, I'm scared shitless. Some freak is in my goddamn apartment. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and manned up to go see what the fuck was up. I got into my room, and the closet door was only open a crack. Not even enough space to see through. I went up to it and nudged it wide open with my foot. I honestly shat bricks when I saw this. The door wide open, this bewildered-looking man with a pump-action shotgun in his mouth. Eyes wide, just staring into mine. Then he squeezed them close, and I knew what came next, so I turned my head and shut my eyes. I heard the bang again. I said to myself, oh God, Jesus Christ, what the... oh God. I turned towards the closet. There was absolutely nothing there. I for the first time realized I was being haunted. I told the landlord what happened, and he told me he didn't want to tell me about it because he figured I wouldn't move in if I knew. I probably would have. I'd been aching for a paranormal experience before then. But anyways, I guess some mentally disturbed guy lived in there a few years back and, in one of his delusional fits, went in the closet with a shotgun and blew his brains out. Needless to say, I was living in the university dorms shortly after that disturbing experience.
Have you fucks ever been to the swinging bridges in Missouri? We walked over that fuck and I thought we were gonna die. Anyway, here's a spooky story. My family and I went out to that creepy-ass bridge. I forgot for what reason, but my brother and I were walking towards a town that was miles away from the camping spot, right next to the bridge. We walked until there was just the road and woods all around us. About halfway to town, a pickup truck drove up next to us. The guy inside rolled down the window, spit out some chewing tobacco, and grinned at us. "You boys want a ride?" he said in a hillbilly twang. Now that doesn't seem so scary, right? In the back seat of the truck sat two obese and comatose-looking people, drooling. They were elderly and very scary-looking. My brother looked at the man and just said, "No thanks." The man smiled again and drove off. Scariest moment of my life.
Alright, so there is this old psych ward about a town over from where I live. It's actually a tuberculosis ward, but everyone calls it the psych ward. Tons of people have died there from tuberculosis when it was active, but now it is abandoned. So me and a few of my friends decide to go take a look. We get some glow sticks and we wait till about 2 a.m. and we start driving down. Takes us a good 15 to 20 minutes to get there, and when we're on the road that it is on, this car comes out of nowhere and starts to follow us. As my friend tells me, the guy following us is probably from around here, as they like to get people in trouble who try to sneak into the psych ward. So we act like we're going somewhere else, and we pass the psych ward and keep going until the car finally leaves us alone. Then we turn around and start heading to the psych ward. Alright, so we park at a fire station, empty at night, free parking, about 5 to 8 minutes walk away from the psych ward. One of our friends stays behind so they can drive the car away if that guy comes back. So we start walking. At one point, we have to sneak past this guy's house who lives right next door to the psych ward. We're walking ridiculously quiet, and by accident, we're all wearing black. So that was a huge plus. As soon as we get right across the street from this guy's house, his little kid starts crying his nuts off. I mean fucking wailing. We all freak a bit. Then we hear a car coming, so we dive into the bushes near the road. The car goes up and down the road at least 4 times before it gives it up. So finally we get to the psych ward entrance. So the front door is locked. Fa-fo! So we sneak around to the side of the house and find a broken window. We sneak in that way and crack our glow sticks. We brought sticks 'cause flashlights would be too bright and the guy would see us. We had an extra one, so we left it by the window so we could find it again to get out. We start walking around and we don't really find anything paranormal. We go upstairs, and there's this one door up there that is covered in electrical tape. We start going towards it, and just as my friend is about to open it, we hear a loud-ass bang coming from the other side of the door. Naturally, we scatter back downstairs, where the glow stick we left by the window is now at the bottom of the stairs. There is absolutely no way that glow stick made it there by itself. So we picked it up and ran back to the car and got out of there. We went back a few times after that, but nothing that freaky happened the other times. That place is fucking freaky though.
I spent a month and a bit up in a rainforest town called Paluma near Australia. Check a map if you want. It's about 100 kilometers north-ish of Townsville, North Queensland, Australia. It's on a mountain. There's an old concrete slab that used to be the foundations for a miner's cavern. According to rumor, the miner died 60 years ago, but his body wasn't found until weeks after. It gets up to around 38 degrees Celsius in summer in Queensland, and in a rainforest, you can imagine he was in a pretty bad state. The person who found his body tried to do the right thing and bury him respectfully, but he was basically a pile of rotten goo, so this guy was forced to just clear out his possessions for his relatives, and then torch the house with the body inside of it. Rumor has it that at night you can hear the miner going about his business in his house, moving chairs, building a fire, etc. Me and a mate didn't believe that shit, so we decided we'd camp on the slab of concrete. Come nighttime, everything was hunky-dory. It got late, so we decided to turn in for the night. We were woken at about 2 a.m. by the sound of a door opening and then shutting. It didn't sound anything like a tree falling, as there was that metallic squeak you get from old hinges. We then heard footsteps walking past our tent, and my mate swears he saw something moving in the shadows. Needless to say, we both stayed awake, not making a sound, until it was sunlight. Then we bolted out of there.
This is true, but I don't know how scary this is. It's just kind of weird. My aunt and uncle were round at my house last Christmas with my 2 little cousins. The youngest is 5, but she has learning difficulties and she's just learning how to count. Her name's Bessie, for the record. Jack is 8. He takes care of her. Anyway, they were horsing around and getting underfoot at lunchtime, so my uncle told them to go count the steps in the staircase in my house. This is a 500-plus-year-old house recorded in the censuses of the town from the 1500s. I have other creepy stories about this place, but nothing too crazy. Cold spots, doors slamming, rapid onset of dizziness in places, voices, hands on shoulders, etc., etc. The usual. So anyway, Bess and Jack come back a few minutes later. Bess is all proud and jumping around telling everyone she counted 12 steps. Jack's backing her up. He's a bright kid and obviously knows how to count. No one thinks anything more of it. I get up after lunch a few hours later to fetch a DVD from upstairs. As I head up, I kind of figure, hey, I'll just make sure. 1, 2, 3. There are 11 steps. I kind of shrug it off, thinking maybe they counted wrong. I was counting from the first step to the final step at the top. You know, maybe for some reason they counted the floor too. I don't know. The thing is, I feel bad about Bessie. Everyone's trying to help her learn and improve her counting, so I yell for her. When I get back from my room, she's standing at the bottom of the stairs. I tell her to climb up one at a time and count them again while I watch. She goes one leg at a time, one step at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She gets to me and she's at 12. She didn't falter or miss a step. She's standing next to me, and I've watched her climb 12 steps, and I kind of start feeling embarrassed. Obviously, I was wrong. I go to the bottom just to make sure. Mentally, I count them out. Yeah, there are 12, for certain. We give up and go downstairs. Well, here's the weird bit. After they left that night, I packed up my stuff and started heading to bed. I was just about to walk upstairs, and a last final thought crossed my mind. Count again. I did. There were 11. TL. DR. My house's staircase changes its number of steps. These are fucking old paneled wooden creaky stairs that have been there probably at least 100 years. This hasn't happened to me before or since, and every time now that I count, there are 11. But I swear when Bessie was there were 12, and I have no idea what to think about that.
My father told me a story once about him and his buddies out drinking and dirt biking in a lava field at night. Of course. A lava field is pretty rocky and shit, so walking on it would be tough. Thus, they were biking around. People in Hawaii claim that you can see Pele, the volcano goddess, at times, and she will usually appear as a young maiden dressed in white. Anyone growing up in Hawaii knows this, so it's always in the back of your head. Anyway, they're drinking and having a blast when my dad said he stopped and asked his friends who that was, pointing out in the distance. My dad swears that his friend suddenly turned white and said there wasn't anyone else with them. And the group of them watched as the figure slowly approached them. Someone said, "How can she see out there?" And, "Why is she walking so smoothly?" And this very thought ran through my dad's head, and his GTFO mode went into overdrive. He tried to dismiss this later as the booze and such, but in his voice I could always hear the doubt, as though he saw Pele. So this story really wasn't scary to me, but it was to my friend. Another thing about Pele is that she also appears at the side of the road looking for a ride to where I don't know. But supposedly if you see her, you are to stop and offer her a ride, at which point she'll get in and vanish sometime down the road. Everyone also knows this in Hawaii as well. Many legends and such. Oh yeah, and she doesn't have feet. So my friend and I are driving down the side of the island. He's driving, which has very little streetlights. Usually they're placed very close to one another. But in this area, they're almost non-existent except at major intersections. The beach is to our left, and Hawaiian housing to the right, and it's not very late. Maybe 10 p.m. I look down the road and see this figure standing under the light, and I ask my friend if she's wearing white. He chuckles and says, "I hope not." I laugh as well, but as we get closer it is apparent she is wearing white with very long hair covering her face and looking at the ground. We look at each other and muster our best WTF faces before looking at her again. I tell my friend that he should slow down and pick her up. Right? He says, "Fuck that." I then start asking him if she has feet. He says he's not going to even look and starts speeding up. I take a peek. As we pass her, I begin yelling, "Fuck, dude, she had no feet. No feet." My friend slams the gas. He had a muscle car, and starts yelling at me that I better be joking. Which I was. Turns out there is this lady down that side of the island that walks around on the side of the road like that. I guess for shits and giggles. Had me going for a bit though, and I had a laugh at my friend's expense. Heh.
I don't know if this would creep out anyone but me, but this first happened to me this spring. I work in the theatre department at my university. One day, I was asked to go up to the attic and put away costumes, sweep up, that sort of thing. The costumes are hung on racks that separate them by era and colour. These racks are just far enough apart for one person to squeeze between them. Things were fine for the first few minutes, but when I went down an aisle with wedding gowns and old-fashioned dresses, I felt my stomach twist. I've never felt anything like it before, and I don't know how else to describe it. I had the distinct feeling that I was surrounded by dead people. At first, it was like standing shoulder to shoulder with several people in a tight space, like on a train or bus. But after the first time going down that aisle, made me feel like there were about 12 people standing around me in a circle. Elsewhere in the attic, I felt like I was being watched and followed. Various dismembered mannequins and their limbs lying around in the shadows didn't exactly help to alleviate the creepiness. Nothing looked or sounded out of the ordinary, but the feeling persisted and returns every time I go up there. I've heard that sometimes the way that wiring and piping are laid out in old buildings can cause feelings of paranoia and the general heebie-jeebies in people due to some sort of electrical field. Maybe that's what's going on. Or maybe some of the late owners of dresses we've gotten through, wills and estate sales, decided to stick around.
When I was about 6, my dad took me to see my aunt and uncle a few days before Christmas. They fawned over me for a few hours, and I did normal little kid stuff while they visited. I ran around the house, dug in their stuff, ate some delicious treats. You know how that goes. To keep me occupied while they had a good long talk about how things were going, my aunt showed me to this room I had never been in. There were toys, a bed, a small dresser. It looked like a young boy's room, which was odd, because the only kid that I knew they had was a girl who was about my age, but she was with her grandparents at the time. Anyways, I went into the walk-in closet, turned on the light, and found this cool toy chest. I sat in there for a while having a good old time. Before I knew it, there was this young boy, about my age, sitting in the closet with me playing with some toys. I don't remember hearing him come sit down. It was just like he was there all of a sudden. I don't remember how long we sat in there playing, but he never talked. I can still remember his features, hair color and whatnot. After a while, I could hear someone walk down the hall towards the room. The boy stood up and walked out of the closet. Turns out it was my dad, and it was time to go. The boy was nowhere to be found. Fast forward 12 years. I was at another aunt's house for the holidays. Her kids and I stayed up late talking about old times, telling jokes, that sort of thing. It was just past midnight when my aunt said in a sad voice that it was 20 years to the day that Matthew died. Her sons and I asked her who Matthew was. She then told us about how my aunt and uncle, the ones that I visited previously, had a son who fell through some ice when he was 6 years old. Losing a child is sad enough as it is, but the fact that it happened a few days before Christmas made it even more heartbreaking. As a result, nobody in the family ever talked about it. All of the kids who weren't old enough to remember it were never told about it at all, which included her kids and myself. I then told her my story, pretty much exactly as I typed earlier. I even described how the boy looked. She said my description matched Matthew exactly. She trusted that I was telling the truth, and as far as the accuracy of my memory, she didn't question that either. A trait that runs throughout my family is that we all have extremely good memories, including my aunt. She got kind of emotional about my story. I, on the other hand, got a little creeped out about playing with a ghost. Thinking back on it, it is actually pretty neat. Not really a scary story, but I just thought I would share.
A friend of mine lived in Savannah and was going to school there, and there were over 9,000 ghost stories floating around that place, some of which she got to experience. In her dorm at night, she could often hear the sound of a woman walking down the hall in high heels. Only no one was ever in the hall, and the footsteps never sounded like they were getting any further away or coming any closer. Just high heels clacking in place. They would also hear the sounds of marbles being rolled across the floor, coming from the ceiling when they were on the top floor. We'll post her best story in a sec. One day she was walking down a street close to campus and passed a woman walking on the opposite side of the street in the other direction. The woman was holding a baby and looked disturbed. She was staring at the ground and didn't glance up at anything or make eye contact. Just kept walking. The baby was crying, but she didn't react to it. My friend passed her, and then got the urge to turn around and look at her again, but had a bad feeling about it and kept walking, moving faster. She'd gotten a block or so away when suddenly an empty baby carriage was forcefully shoved out across the street in front of her. It slammed hard into a rail on the other side of the street. No one came running after it, and there were no people in the area where the baby carriage had been shoved from. It appeared to have come from nowhere. That's pretty much it. She ran all the way back to her dorm. Shit would freak me out, though.
My grandfather used to work for Paramount during the 1950s and 60s. He basically helped set up lights, sets, and other important stuff. In a shed out back, he has some of the stuff he kept. Lights, filters, bulbs, wires, 2 movie cameras, director's chairs, etc. When I was 16, I got my first moped and worked on it out of the shed. Something wasn't right about the place. I hated being in or around that place at night. One night, while rebuilding an engine, stayed longer than I usually did. I kept hearing what sounded like big band music very faintly. I shook it off and turned on my iPod deck to drown whatever I was hearing out. I sat back down and resumed working. That's when I began to feel watched. I looked to the tool shed. It's attached to the bigger shed. The tool shed's almost the size of a walk-in closet. Its light was off somehow. I saw a faint figure in the darkness of the tool shed. Then what sounded like a female exhaling. Someone was in there with me. I stood up and grabbed an old ball-peen hammer. I could hear something coming from behind the shelf with all of the old movie shit. I ran towards the shelf, saw nothing, turned to the dark tool shed to see a somewhat tall woman, big eyes, skinny, and short hair, wearing a white blouse and a brown skirt that went just to her ankles in the door frame. I remember looking at her and feeling the hair on my neck stand up. Goosebumps all over me. She smiled softly and disappeared. I ran screaming, grabbed my working moped, and rode home. My grandfather doesn't know who I saw. Neither did I.
These aren't really paranormal stories, but they creeped me out when I first heard them, and they still do. I heard these when I was about 10 years old. Field trips to the mills are a cheap local thing most kids typically do in elementary school. So in Massachusetts in the 1800s, textile mills were pretty big. Lowell was one of the biggest mill towns. These mills were staffed by poor women looking for some money, typically in their 20s. But you always hear stories of 12-year-old girls working there, which did happen. These women lived in shitty boarding houses and worked like 70 hours a week. If you've never been to an old textile mill, they're crazy. Shuttles with thread fly back and forth mind-numbingly fast and weave textiles. The girls fed cloth to the machines and made sure they were functioning properly. Long hair was popular. They recommended women cut their hair short, but a lot of women just tied their hair back. Sometimes their hair would be down, sometimes stray hairs would fall out. Girls would lean in too close and, you guessed it, get their hair trapped in the shuttle. She would start screaming, and the women working with her would try desperately to get her hair out, stop the machine, cut her hair, but on several occasions, girls would essentially get scalped by the machine or be strangled when they got trapped. The one story that really got to me was of a young girl who was excited for her lunch break. It wasn't long, so she didn't want to waste any time getting out of the mill. Several stories up, she thought it'd be a good idea to slide down the railing on the spiral staircase. She didn't get far before falling into the spiral and cracking her skull open.
In Oregon, there's an abandoned insane asylum behind a school. The school has nothing to do with the asylum, just location. Anyways, one night my friends and I decided let's go break into the asylum and see what's happening. We'd been planning it for a while. So we brought a bat, a knife, a Callaway driver found in a dumpster, a flashlight, and a camera. It took us just about an hour to walk over and sneak past the patrolling cop, 8 or 9 of us. 2 were fatties. The way in was through the back forest, which was scary as well. Skipping ahead, we broke the chain and got in, being super quiet. I had the flashlight. We were slowly making our way through the place and we heard this scratching sound upstairs. We made our way up the stairs to see 2 people laying in the corner. Freaked us out because they didn't get up and the scratching was actually a few rats crawling on them. Turns out we wasted about 3 hours of our night to travel to a haunted asylum to find 2 dead hobos laying in a corner. $14 for a new pair of boxers, because I did shit myself.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.